We'll talk about a lot of things, but one thing I'm generally top of mind curious about, there are many sports people who retire and they become coaches, but very few, I can't even, hardly become a brand like you. Like you're known, like people know your name, you are out there. How do you think that has happened and why do you think that has happened?
Um, well, when I won the All England in
Just a little
2001,
mic closer. Yeah.
when I won the All England in 2001, um, I kind of was reflecting back on what I did. And some of the things made me feel that what I have done has been good, but it can be replicated. Because today, when I look at the sport and when we talk about sport, people talk about sports science, nutrition, physiology, psychology. These are the problems which people encounter. But when I won the All England, I had a journey where going to the stadium, watchman and I, that was the problem. You go into the stadium, current hai and I was the problem. Shuttles hai and I, coach hai and I. So the basics were not there and I could win the All England. So in my mind, it was like if I can win the All England, and I had about 3 knee surgeries by then. If I can win the All England, maybe many others can. And that is literally the only reason why I actually started to coach. Because I felt a lot of them around me had the potential. And when I was playing, and a lot of them, when I was finishing my career, actually had the career, had a prospect to be world level. So I just took up coaching with that in mind.
Okay. Well, you've done a lot of things. You're most famous for badminton. You're most famous for Saina. But we know that you've done a lot of things. Firstly, it's not just badminton, and it's not just the Olympics. It's Paralympics. Uh, you've been doing things in Mizoram. You have some very interesting slides, which will be very interesting for you guys to see. You've been spotting talent, moving to other sports. What are you most proud of? And if you could just tell us things that are keeping you passionate these days, because the Olympics are over now.
Well, I think it's a whole journey. For me, sport has been everything in my life. But for me, Olympics is not everything of sport. The way sport transforms lives is important. Many people look at sport and say many things, but many of them only look at the shine of sport. The reality of sport is kind of left off. To get a grassroots level picture, I remember I have my um, friend coach Ramesh sir also here. I remember having trained with him, and some of the women actually would really love to see this transformation. Because I remember training, going to training, and some of the girls were actually missing in training for a few days. And I asked them what went wrong. And the answer was something which really shocked me, and which even today brings tears to my eyes. Because the answer was they can't afford napkins, so they can't come few days in a month. And these were national level athletes training and playing for the country, literally. And this was the state of Indian athletics in 2000, or this is the way I remembered it. So when I won the All England, when I had a chance to do something, we organized some training camps and gave money. And I'm happy that many of those girls got jobs. And that is the big achievement. It's not the Olympics which gave me happiness, it's that lives which were changed which gave me life. Back in the day, in 2016, when a company called Maitra, Vikram and Ravi Kailash, they came up to me and asked for me to come to their office to give a lecture. I said, why should I come? And I would rather not come and help something else, do something else, because it's not worth it. But I asked them something. If you do my athletes a favor, I will actually come to your office and give a corporate talk. And they said yes. And we started off with a bunch of 10 athletes then. Later it became 40 in 2017. And if you actually see from that group of people, we've had Duti Chand, who won 2 medals at the Asian Games. Of course, she was already a player by then. But if you see Jyoti Araji, who won an Asian Games hurdles medal, silver medal, in the last Asian Games, she was part of it. Her father is a security guard. Agasari Nandini, who comes from a social welfare school and who won a bronze at the heptathlon in the Asian Games last year, whose father is a T. Bundy. That's the man. This girl, Deepti Jewanji, who won the Paralympic gold, Paralympic bronze this time around. Her father was a laborer in Warangal. She was part of that group. In fact, there are people in the group who are his Ramesh sir, but there are people in the group who were actually collecting firewood in Bhadrachalam forest. Rajita, who's actually been fourth at the Junior World Championships. This is Sri Teja, who's from a tribal village. This is Deepti on the corner. But there are these girls who are actually coming from absolute poverty, who made a name for the country, and that's been phenomenal. We look at the shine of sport, but the reality of sport, I think Shanmuga Srinivas, you see him, his photograph, picking up paddy bags because he couldn't afford food during the COVID times. We sent him home from the hostel. He couldn't afford because his parents' father is not there and he had to fend for his family. And for $500, he was actually picking up. And he's the under 23 national champion in 200 meters. Each of these events, I have seen a lot of corporates work hard and tell you that they've really worked hard. But trust me, what they have gone through, you have not gone through. The pain which they've gone through, the suffering which they've gone through, the passion which they've pushed this event is unparalleled. And today, they are struggling, they've always struggled in this journey for 3 square meals. And they have brought glory to our country. We are talking about a Deepti or a Jivanji or a Yaraji today, but truly the moments when their parents have supported them with little of whatever little they have. They had 100 rupees, they have spent all the 100 on them. I think that very few people have done. And they have actually got us the name for the country, not many of us in the corporate schooling structure. So this gives me an immense pleasure. This gives me going. It's a fantastic journey. For me, badminton has been a huge journey. 1994, we started off. I remember I was the #1 player in the country. We were not sent to the Commonwealth Games because the government norm was that you have to be in the top 6 nations in the Commonwealth Games. And we were not fitting that criteria. 30 years later, we become the Thomas Cup champions to be the world champions of men's badminton. And last year we won the Asian Women's Team Championships. That, I believe, is transformation which we've been able to see. 2018, after my Olympic medal with Sindhu, we had a Facebook request and we started a program in Mizoram. In 2019-20, we lost time because of COVID. In spite of it, 872 kids play badminton in Mizoram, and last year's under-17 national champion Lal Tajwala is from Mizoram, from a state which never had anybody reach the pre-quarterfinals of a nationals forever. So I think there have been stories which have actually helped transform people, transform communities, and basically telling us that we have the potential to become huge in the world. And I think that's what keeps me going, and that's what's truly been something which is very gratifying and very satisfying for me in my work.
Yeah, that is an incredible journey. I have two questions actually. On the first, on the tribal and the people from really underprivileged backgrounds, and the second is on your Olympic winners. First question is, how do you, like, there is millions and millions of people in India with those backgrounds. How do you spot the talent then? It's like literally finding a needle in a haystack, that somebody speaking firewood somewhere and they end up becoming a champion. Do they come to you? Do you go looking for them? How is the talent spotting done? And then I'll come to the second question later, but maybe just answer this.
Well, I think about 3 years back, we had Kiran from the United Group. They had come for me to become the brand ambassador to their sporting event, which started off as a conversation, which led them today to actually have 40 rural centers in the Bhadrachalam forest, in Srikakulam, in Karimnagar, in Warangal, in the interior places, where we have athletes, former athletes, who actually worked really hard but couldn't make a life out of sport, who are very depressed and wanting and searching for a job. Such kind of people we found, identified, and in their native places we've actually given them a salary, and then they become the architects of a small ecosystem which they develop for. We train them for a week, we send them back, we mentor them. We, as in, there is a group of people headed by Dronacharya Ramesh Garu, and they go into the forest, into people, and actually try to bring them to training in those places. We give them very little nutrition. It's not those fancy bars which we eat. It's basically peanuts, literally peanuts, jaggery, and bananas and eggs. And with that, actually, they come with a lure sometimes for food, but actually we try and pick talent from there. It's been a very successful model because we have many champions who have come. There are probably millions of them or lakhs of them in our country, in those pockets. I think it's very important that we actually go find them. And we need to have a system which can actually bring them to the top, and that would be important.
Okay. Okay, so now one is finding the talent. The next is you need to polish that talent, right? And polish till they reach potentially one day at the Olympic stage, stand on the podium, and that has happened for you multiple times. It's very rare still for anybody in the world to win an Olympic medal. And I think I'm very curious to know, because you are a coach. I mean, the players can give their own reasons how they made it. But for people who are not a sports person, most people watching this are not sports people. But they are working in an office, or they are studying for an exam, or they are just having some goals in the gym, I don't know. And if they want to reach that ultra high level of excellence, which is like the Olympic level of championship, or at least try to be, like they want to be CEO one day, or they want to be a big businessman one day, or they want to be have a great body one day, become a topper one day. What does it take? What does it take? Like you said, you have no idea what they go through. What does it take to become a champion?
Passion. I think an obsession is what is needed. A drive so deep that every waking hour, minute, second, you dream of becoming that. It's very important. It's about believing that the unbelievable is possible. The impossible is possible, you have to believe. To be mad enough to realize that what you're pursuing might never happen, but you cheat yourself to believing that it is definitely going to happen. I think that needs a kind of a madness, a kind of an obsession, which is very critical in this journey. A rational mind cannot get there because you're talking about one in an entire world. To be in that level, a rational mind is not. A plan B is not what is wanted. A plan A is the only plan which you have, and all your energies, after repeatedly failing and people telling you it's not possible, you're still going to pursue it, believing that you are going to do it this time, and this time, and this time, forever. I think that kind of a madness is what is needed for you to get to that level.
Wow. And not everyone has it. And tell me something, the flip side of this is when it doesn't happen, it must be really disappointing. I mean, emotionally to deal with that. In fact, let's take a very specific example, and I want your perspective, but the whole country got involved in that. We had Vinesh Fogart, who was guaranteed a silver, good shot at gold. It was just there, one fight away, few minutes of, you know, and then she didn't lose, but she didn't what they call make weight. And it was 100-gram thing, and it's apparently, I didn't know this, I had to learn that wrestlers have to meet the weight category. They eat a lot, they're normally more than their weight, and just on the day of the weighing, they cut, run, sweat, not eat, and they do it. How would a coach and the player itself, when that happens, when you've been like, that's all you've been thinking about every waking hour, you finally reach that stage, and over this, I would call it a technicality, it doesn't happen. How would that be? It would have been, and how would they deal with it?
Well, I think sports is probably the only one which is actually teaching you about failure the best. A 10-year-old comes on the field and loses in front of people at a young age, and he gets up the next day morning to fight again. I think the seeds of fighting actually come from that perspective. The seeds of getting up after failure come up from there. So many sports persons are trained to deal with failure. They're trained to believe that they're going to win, which is actually in many times a cheat by itself. But they're also trained to actually get up each time. And I think that's a very important part of training which people go through day in and day out. And I think that keeps them in steadfast when they actually get to a point like this of absolute disappointment. They still get up and pick up their life together and start another day fresh, thinking that tomorrow will be different. And I think that madness is what is ingrained in a true sports person, and that is what actually Vinesh probably had to go through. For many of us who won't understand what 100 grams means, I think it's literally the first time you make it. You would see boxers, you would see wrestlers, judokas, weightlifters. They at the at the cafeteria or the food place at the Olympics, and you would see them, they never eat. It's not that they overeat, they never eat. They're probably eating 5 to 6 kishmish or dry fruit, and that's all they're eating. And literally, to put things in perspective, they would, they were to put me through a weightlifting or a boxing or a wrestler's diet plan, I would probably lose 8 kgs within 4 days. That's literally how much they would squeeze you. They're literally running, they're putting on jackets and running, they're on a bicycle cycling, and then they're drinking electrol and then throwing it off. They're not even getting to drink, and literally people would carry them out and stretch them because there's nothing left in their bodies. You're thinking there's something, there's not even, after spending hours in the gym and the sauna, they're probably sweating few drops. So they're almost like a dried fruit. they have nothing left. So I think there's a lot of torture which goes in a weight loss, and I'm sure she must have gone through hell to probably that night to actually lose that 300-400 grams, and that 100 probably was just not possible because there's nothing left in there to give up, and I think that's what an athlete goes through.
Well, she did go on to fight an election and won. So yeah, you're right.
That's the
She
easier job.
Well,
That's the easier job, trust me.
well, we'll have to ask the politicians whether they agree or not. But yeah, she did live to fight another day. Thanks, Pullela. That was very insightful and helpful and motivational for all of us. Thank you.
Thanks, Gopi. Thank you very much.